Well, welcome to another baking session. We're going chocolate again, and we're going to actually make a chocolate tart. A little bit sophisticated, okay, but this is chocolate tart flavoured with honey, and in this case amaretto, but you would normally use rum or Cointreau, but I ain't got any, so we use an amaretto. Honey and amaretto ganache, okay, finished off with a layer of nice tempered chocolate. But before we can do any of that, we need to make our base, if you like. I keep want to call it quiche. It's not quiche, is it? You know what I mean? Our pastry base. And this dough needs to be rested for at least 8 hours in the fridge. So we're going to make it tonight, and then tomorrow we'll be baking it and then making the filling. So, excuse me, in there I've got 75 grams of butter. And what I'm going to then add into that, sieve into that, is some flour. So just some plain flour, 125 grams. Okay, I've also got some sugar, although I'm going to sieve that won't go through a sieve, so I'll probably end up having to tip that out of the sieve. And then I've got, so I'll tell you how much sugar I've got 50 grams sugar and 25 grams of almond flour. That doesn't normally go through, but we'll see. Right, so I'm just going to sieve that in there into the butter, and then we'll blend them together. You'll need a whole egg, a gram of salt. Actually, you might chuck that in there now. All right, gram of salt, and then what we'll do is we'll just blend all that together. Okay, and essentially that's it. Then it goes in the fridge. All right. So let me just finish blending that. Okay, so we're just going to try and blend this together. Butter's a little bit softer now because it's been sat out there for ages. Okay, so it's a matter of mixing that together, and then we'll blend in the egg. And like I say, it's about a whole egg, just whisked up to mix it all together, and then that will go into this. We mix thoroughly in to make our dough, and then that dough will be, like I say, wrapped up with some cling film, shoved in the fridge, and tomorrow morning, ideally you want it 8 hours, so it will be at least that tomorrow, and then we'll be rolling it, lining our pan or dish, and baking it, and then we'll make our filling. Alright, so let me just get this all mixed in. Okay, so find a little whisk up of that egg, bit of that. And then what we're going to do is just add that in a little bit at a time, mixing it in. Move my beer out of the way, don't want to knock my beer over. Okay. Get the rest of that egg in there, get rid of that. So it's then just a matter of mixing this all together until it's all mixed into a nice dough. We don't need to really do any kind of kneading with this. Okay, you just need to make sure it's all mixed up together. I might have to get my hands in here a minute. It's a bit sticky. And then, like I say, what we'll do is we will then just wrap it, okay, and then refrigerate it. Okay, so it's just about there now. So let me get some cling film and we'll wrap it. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just going to pull this all together, and that's going to go in the fridge and chill overnight. And then tomorrow we can roll it with a bit of flour and line our tin. So that's it for tonight. Okay, now to do the next stage of our chocolate tart. So my dough's been wrapped and chilled overnight. I've got some baking beans ready. I've got some flour for when we roll it. Melted down some butter. Now I've got a flan dish, or pie dish, whatever you want to call it. And although it's non-stick, and the bottom falls off. Although it's non-stick, we're going to coat it with some butter, melted butter. But when we come to sort of bake it blind, normally you would sort of cover it in something like baking powder, but aluminium foil is better because it conducts the heat through better. So as a little tip, rather than trying to do it when you've got the dough in there, it's a bit soft, what I've done is made a little aluminium cover, all right, ready to go for when we're ready. All right, so I'm just going to remove that. Let me put that up there. Now, this one's got holes all in it, and so you can guarantee some of that butter is going to come out, and when we bake it, we probably get a little bit of leakage. So I'm going to do it on a braking pan, and all I'm going to do now is just make sure I've thoroughly coated the inside of this with some melted butter. Okay, so I'll get on with that, and when we're ready for rolling, I'll show you then. Okay, so that's got that covered, so I'm just going to put that to one side, and now what we're going to do is we're going to roll our dough out. Now obviously we want it rolled out enough to cover that and up the sides. Okay, now if you remember, although this is now chilled, this was a very sticky dough, so we want to make sure we've got plenty of flour. Okay, for when we come to do our rolling. And remember, we want to flour our rolling pin, but also make sure that this doesn't stick anywhere. Okay, so generous application of flour, and then we're just going to roll it out until big enough to cover. Right, so that's got that rolled. Now the tricky bit is going to be getting this up and onto the pie dish successfully. And then we're just going to make sure we've got it pressed in all the way around, okay? Right, then our final thing before we let it chill for about an hour in the fridge before we bake it is we just prick it all over, okay, including up the sides. Now this hooly pan should ensure we don't get soggy bottoms, but who knows? Not tried this pan before, had to buy this new. So I'm going to carry on pricking that, put it in the fridge for an hour, and then we'll get baking. Okay, so our pie base, tart base if you like, has chilled about an hour. So now I'm going to lay that foil inside there. I'll put my oven on to preheat, I want it up to 160. And then we're just going to spread some baking stones over the aluminium. Like I said, aluminium's a little bit better at this than paper, okay? And when the oven's up to temperature, we're going to shove it in and bake it for about 35 minutes, okay? If when we come out and have a look, we don't think it's done, it will go back in for about another 5 minutes, okay? And then we'll do a final bake after we've given it a bit of an egg yolk wash for another 5 minutes. But for now, just wait for the temperature to come up. As soon as it's up, in the oven it will go for 35 minutes. Okay, so that's at 35 minutes and it looks done. Not quite so much in the middle, but it's just about there. So what we're going to do now is the oven's still on, okay, and we're now going to give it a coating of egg yolk, okay, all over, and then it will go back in the oven for another 5 minutes. Okay, we turn the oven down a little bit. Okay, so like I say, I'm just going to cover that whole of that up the sides as well with egg yolk. Bake it for another 5 minutes, 140ish, and then we just bring it out and let it chill before we start doing the filling. Okay, so there's our tart, or tart base if you like, out the oven. Now I'm just going to let that cool, and that's that finished, and then we're just going to make the first of our 2 fillings, but I'm going to let that cool a little bit longer first. Okay, so our tart is baked. Now we could take it out, but I don't want to risk all the sides collapsing, so I'm going to leave it in the tin for now. Okay, and we're now going to make the main filling, another ganache that's going to sit on the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to have another thin layer on top. Now for that, we're going to want 125 mils of double cream. Okay, we're going to want about 15 grams of honey, 180 grams of milk chocolate. Okay, how much butter is it? 20 grams of unsalted butter. We're going to need 10 mils. Then you could put rum in, corn flour, whatever. We're having amaretto again, because remember, this is all I've got. Okay, so 10 mils of that. You'll want a cocktail stick, but you'll see why that is later. Right, so that's what we're going to do for the main filling. So what I need to do before I do anything else is chop my chocolate, because we're going to be mixing that in with the cream and honey and everything, and we obviously want it to melt easier. So yeah, another chocolate chopping session. Okay, so 125 mils of cream goes into the pan, and we're going to put the honey and rum also into there. And then we're going to bring this to the boil, and once it's got to the boil, we will add our chocolate, so we can mix all that in. There's our honey, and like I said, we want 10 mils of our spirit. There we go. That's now going to go to the boil. And once it gets to the boil, we will be adding in that chocolate. Now the butter is going to get added, but not just yet. Okay, so we're going to wait for that to come up to the boil, and then we'll start mixing the chocolate. Okay, this is just coming up to the boil. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm now going just to add my chocolate. I'm trying to get it everywhere. And we're now just going to let this mix in, but we want it to start cooling off now. Okay, and we're going to let it cool down to about 40. So I've got my temperature gun. Okay, and when it's down to 40, we're going to add in the butter. Okay, so you can see the chocolate is starting to mix in nicely. Nice rich chocolatey colour now, a little bit of cream there still. Get that all mixed in. And then, like I say, this will be poured into there, and then it's going to set for about 3 hours in the fridge. Okay, part of the reason I started all this last night, because there's quite a lot of pauses in this. Okay, so let's have a quick check on the temperature. Switch it to that. 49.3. So just going to let that chill a little bit longer. And like I say, we then add the butter, let that all melt into it, mix it all well in, and then we're going to pour. And remember, you need a cocktail stick. Okay, so it's almost 40. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to add in that butter. Okay. And we want to get this melted and thoroughly mixed in. Okay, once that's happened, we're then going to pour it into our pie base, flan base, whatever, right? And then you need your cocktail stick. So this obviously is going to take a little bit just to dissolve it all, melt it all in, right? So it's not that hot. So we come to pouring. I'll show you how we pour it because it's very tricky. Okay, so that butter is now all mixed in. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to pour that in to the base. Okay, we'll get it all in there. Right, just need to swap hands. Bit awkward doing it left-handed. So, get as much in there as possible. Okay, we don't want to waste any, don't we? Okay. And then, what we want to do is try and get rid of any of them air bubbles, hence cocktail stick. So just carefully go and try. Although that air bubble just seems to want to move out my way. How does that one? I mean, we are going to be coating this, but we want a nice, perfect finish. That air bubble just doesn't want to go. There's a big one. So, like I said, this will now, that one just doesn't want to go. This will now go into the fridge for 3 hours to chill right down, and then we will come and we'll put a final layer on top. So, be seeing you in 3 hours. Right, so we're getting to the final stage of our tart. So I've removed it from the pan, okay, and we're going to put a very thin coating on top of that. And so what we're going to need is about 4 grams of gelatin. So I've got some Premier grade sheets there, and I'm just going to soak that because, like before, we want it softened, we don't want it melted yet. So I'll put that into some ice water. Okay, we're going to need a pan. Now, ideally you want a tiny pan, but that's as small as I've got, because in there I've got 35 grams of water and about 35 grams of single cream. So that's going to go in there. We can't get all of that out because there's not an awful lot of liquid, is it? Okay. Now that is going to go and be heated shortly. All right. Before then, final 2 ingredients. Here's some caster sugar again, 50 grams caster sugar, and then some cocoa powder, 20 grams. Okay, and we're going to put the cocoa powder in with the sugar, and then with a little whisk, just mix all that together. Now, we're going to heat that up, okay, and then obviously we're going to add the gelatin, dissolve that up, and then we're going to mix all this together and then gently pour a layer over the top. You can't really see, did try to get rid of some bubbles, but obviously some bubbles came to the surface afterwards. Right, so that's that mix for the moment. So our next thing, let me just move that over here so it don't get too warm. And let's put on this to heat. Now it's not going to take an awful lot of heat to heat that up. Okay. Okay, so that's coming up to the boil. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add in the sugar and the cocoa. We're going to mix that up. Just going to take that off the heat while I do that. So just using that same whisk, we're just going to mix all that together. And when we're happy, that's all mixed in, which it looks like it just about is now, we're just going to put it back on the heat and we're going to bring it up to the boil. Okay, so let me pause. Okay, so we're just waiting for that to come back up to the boil, and then we'll take out our gelatin sheets which have been soaking in that ice water and put them into this mix. And then what we will do is we'll strain it into another bowl. You have to use some, create some washing up this thing. Okay, we're going to strain that into another bowl so it's nice and smooth, and we allow that to cool to about 32 degrees before we pour it. Okay, so just letting that come up. Not quite there yet. Let's have another coffee. Might as well pause this while it's boiling. Okay, so that's just come up to the boil, so I'm going to turn the heat off, and then I'm going to take the gelatin sheets, drain them off and plonk them in there. Just double check in to see if I've got any more, and that's already starting to melt. So we're going to mix that through. Let's get that out of the way. So now we just wait until it's all melted through, okay, which it looks like it might well have done. And then, like I say, our final thing is we're going to strain it, so we've got no lumpy bits in it. We want this a nice smooth coating. So that's okay. So in it goes into there. That. Just get that out of there. Get it out as much as can. And like I say, we're just going to strain it, and then we just want it to cool. So it'll take a little while to cool. So catch you when it's cool. Okay, so this is cooled. Actually, it's not quite a 32 yet, but it's starting to skin, so I think it's probably best if I pour it on now. So just get every bit out of here, and then we just, like I say, it's just a thin layer over the top. Okay, I just need to help ooze it round, as it were. Just put that there for a minute. Just run it round so it covers the whole of the top. Just that little bit there. And there we go. And that now needs to go into the fridge to chill. Ooh, got a bit missing there. To chill for about at least an hour. Alright, so perhaps in about an hour's time we might try some. Okay, so it has to be done. I'm thinking of you. We've got our finished tart. It's refrigerated for an hour, got a nice shiny top on it. But of course, I know you want to taste it. So, here we go. There we go, nice little thin slither. Lift it out. There we go, left a little bit of biscuit in there, but don't matter. Right, so, come off. Let's have a little taster then. So, what's the bit that got missing? Nice crunchy base. And very nice chocolatey topping. Perfect. I don't know how well you can see this, but so we got like the gelatin jelly type layer on top, although it's not really jelly. And then you've got your ganache sort of layer underneath, and then a nice biscuity base. So that is your supreme chocolate tart flavoured with honey and amaretto. So please enjoy it. I will.